proceed to the first point that we have on the agenda today. EPSA TORSO changes. AFOP?
Marlene, AFOP Austria, can you please start letting us in earlier? Because we have right now about 10 minutes delay just because we couldn't get in.
Yes, we'll do that. Okay. EPSA TORSO changes. We will have terms of reference changes proposed by the executive, terms of reference changes proposed by members, and standing orders changes proposed by executive. We will start with the executive proposals. I will read the motion. The 61st EPSA General Assembly adopts the changes of the EPSA terms of reference, except for articles 5.1.7, 5.1.8, 5.4, 6.1.7, 6.2.10, 8.1.6, 8.1.7, 8.3, 8.4, 9.1, 9.2, 6.2.3, 4.3.1.5, 5.3.10, 5.6.10, proposed by the executive. With this, I open the floor for discussion. Mihai, President.
Mihai, President.
Internet connection dropped. Okay, Mihai, President.
Mihai, President. So in front of you, we have a motion with some exceptions. The exceptions are related to everything on the advocacy platform and on everything needed to move the voting from online LS meetings to advocacy platform, and everything related to the new chapter of removals from office. We had a meeting with Alumni, and after discussing with them, we realized there might be some amendments needed to be implemented. We'll be discussing this in the OEM, and this is why I said yesterday when we discussed the agenda that there will be another round of discussions for some tolerant changes. This is why, and this is how the motion looks like. So we'll be approving everything except advocacy platform and the new chapter 9.
Points, type them again in the chat because I am not able to see anything from when I was dropped. AFOP?
I know you just said it, but can you give us 2 minutes to actually check which reg changes we can now, like, discuss now and which later?
chat when you are ready, just for us to know. Okay? But take your time.
Eu le dau impulsul să dau în târziu când preia pe cuvântul. Dar ea trebuie să intre de la punctul ăla.
Malina, I was just wondering, this 9.1 here refers to the whole new green paragraph, because there is also a 9.1 that you propose to change to 10.1, and I just wanted to, okay, thank you.
In this, on the speaking list.
Kathy, can you please speak Netherlands? Would it be possible to, in the future, even if you have such a meeting the day before, just send us the analysis or the official update regarding the points you want to raise or the points that you do want to proceed with, because then we could have checked this before the GA started, and this would have saved like 10 minutes or 15 minutes. And it would also be less stressful for the analysis to have this, to check this out within the time. Thank you.
Any more comments on this motion? With the technical?
Okay, President, I call the floor for discussion.
Thank you. I will now read the motion again. The 61st EPSA General Assembly adopts the changes of the EPSA terms of reference except for the articles mentioned proposed by the executive. Please type for, against, or abstain in the chat. I have 23 votes, still missing one. We have 23 votes for, 1 against, no abstention. Motion carried. We can proceed to the next point, terms of reference member proposals. The first one is the 61st EPSA General Assembly adopts the changes of the EPSA terms of reference proposed by CzPSA, the Netherlands, and seconded by Austria on Article 3.8.11. I open the floor for discussion.
Yeah, I would just like to say, Nate, Slovenia, sorry. I would just like to say that I think that we were not ready to vote for the motion because I'm not sure that every LS was aware of what was she or he voting on, because you didn't ask for us if we had enough time to go through all the regulations, and yeah, we had several comments, but yeah, we haven't had the time to read through, like, what are we waiting, what are we voting on and not, so yeah.
For this, if more LSs feel that they did not discuss the previous motion, as I asked many times, if there are more comments and nobody said, wait, let us read or something else. If you feel the need to go back to this motion, you can use the procedural motions. You have 9.4 to reconsider a motion. We have a 9.4. A 9.4 proposed by CzPSA, seconded by PPSA. I now give the floor to CzPSA.
CzPSA Slovenia, we think we did not have enough time to read what are we voting on and what are we not voting on. So we would like to ask some more questions about this motion.
Thank you. PPSA.
Joanna, PPSA Poland, we agree with CzPSA and we need some more time to go through the motions again. And also maybe it would be easier to rewrite the motion and write down which articles are we actually voting for in this motion than writing the changes except, because it's quite confusing to understand. And that's it. Thank you.
CzPSA.
Nate, CzPSA Slovenia. Actually, it would be better if someone from the exec would be present. What are we voting on? Like, if we would just go through the document and see what are we voting on, that would be the best. Thank you.
Okay, now we are discussing the 9.4, not the motion that needs to be rediscussed. So any comments on the 9.4? Hi, with the technical?
May President, I close the floor for discussion on the 9.4.
Let me explain a bit. So you will type for, against, or abstain, and this is for the 9.4. If motion is carried, we will go back to the motion that is shown, to motion number 11. Okay, please type for, against, or abstain in the chat. Okay, 24, let us check. Okay. 23 votes for, 1 against, motion was carried, so we can go back to this motion. The 61st EPSA General Assembly adopts the changes of the EPSA terms of reference except the articles mentioned, proposed by the executive. With this, I open the floor for discussion. Mihai, President.
On the advice received from the General Assembly, I'd like to screen share and go once again through the document, although this has already happened in the technical. But I will point out exactly what is being postponed and what not.
Say.
Joanna, PPSA Poland, I propose to change the writing of this motion and mention the articles that that the GA adopts than the articles that we are not going to adopt, because it's very confusing. Thank you.
President.
Hi, President, thank you very much for the suggestion, but in our opinion, that would be counterproductive, so we will not follow up with the request, but thank you for mentioning it. Could I please screen share? So I will show you exactly what is getting postponed for next week. This paragraph 5, removal of all of these articles, this is related to the new chapters. This is getting postponed to be removed. Once again, same deal for paragraph 6, everything you see in red in front of, and 8 once again. I don't think I need to go point by point here because this is a big block of removal and adding later.
Melina, out of Austria, it might be just me, but can you please speak up and a little bit more clearly? Because I'm not always understanding you.
Is it better now for you? Can you hear me better now? Okay, perfect. So, I was saying that everything you see already in paragraph 5, 6,
Can you hear me now? Perfect. So as I was saying, those are some paragraphs that the removal of those paragraphs and adding of these paragraphs is getting laid on the table for next weekend. This is one big block, and I think you all know what I am talking about. For 21.3.3, it is the same thing. It goes under the same motivation and for the same reasons. And for 6.2, it is the same thing. Now, 3.1.5, once again, the removal of this article is getting laid on the table. 5.10, the same thing. 5.6.10, same thing. The proposal to add the possibility for executive to approve new advocacy initiatives. That would be everything. Blocks and everything related to moving voting from online LLeaP meetings to advocacy platform. Is this clearer for everyone?
Hear me now? Okay, good. I have a new point from CzPSA.
CzPSA Netherlands. I saw that 5.1.4 wasn't included in the list that you aren't including, so this means that the proposal still contains the point 5.1.4, which states that no more than 2 executive members shall be from the same country. This condition shall not apply for the position of EPSA immediate past president. And I was actually, we do not agree with this change, because actually you're putting someone's nationality above their qualities as a candidate. And being from a certain country really doesn't mean that you're even or that you even care more about that country than about EPSA this way. And aside, also, like, being from a country doesn't mean anything that you're studying in the country. So the wording would or should be changed if you're even proceeding with this motion. And additionally, looking at the last 3 years, each mandate there were more than 3 candidates from one country, or more than 3 executive members from one country. So it would really make forming an executive even harder. And looking at the fact that we have still some or not applications for this election, I think that adding something like this would make it even harder. So I don't really see the point of doing this. I think it will only harm EPSA. Thank you.
Okay, it should work now. I have CzPSA.
Sanja, CzPSA Slovenia. We have a question regarding newsletters. Why will there be only 2 EPSA newsletters instead of 3? We couldn't catch that earlier.
Yes, sorry, there were many pluses in the list. I have a direct from Sorina first.
Nu sunt auzit, Bianca, ai băgat la USBT, am mod Sorina.
Yes, and I hope you can hear me. I will explain a bit. Since I think you could have seen already, we discussed, first of all, to move this project under the publications coordinator. That's a first thing, and that will adapt to the task that the coordinator would have. And second of all, as I discussed with my predecessors, at least both of them in the last 2 mandates complained about the workload of the second volume of the EPSA newsletter that was coming at the ER. That was too much, and it was really hard from their side to find things to write about and to have that issue in time. So that's why we took this decision. Mostly because at the ER now we are planning to issue the activity booklet that's also coming back to the PR department. So we are adding one publication and taking this one out. That's why we took this decision, and I hope it was clear. I'm not sure if that's what you wanted to hear.
Thank you. Now I have a FOP.
Marlene Apap, Austria. As KMPSV, we also do not agree with the change in 5.1.4, and we would like to ask any alumni in this room or the alumni coordinator, whoever is here, what they think about this, since they have been the ones working in teams with more than 2 or 3 people from one nationality, and if this in any case threatened their neutrality, because this was the reason that was given by the executive.
Catalina?
From the input that I have gathered from alumni, they have raised some concerns that you already risen as well, having also it being wording, what is nationality, or it having be the lack of human resources in general for the future teams. Also, the future possible issues with it also being translated to further positions like the coordinators. And in general, they risen a lot of concerns and were rather against it.
Now I have a new point from GPSF.
George, CzPSA Chris. We were wondering if it's possible to have a little more background information on why we decided to drop the IMP project. Were there difficulties in this project before the pandemic situation, so you decided to drop it?
President?
Hi, President. So a bit more background information for why IMP is getting dropped now. We had motions to investigate, like the previous executives had motions to investigate the IMP for 2 mandates before us. And after looking in the history, after looking at everything, it became apparent that the IMP is not delivering the results, and the need for having such a big structure and having everything regulated in such way does not transpose to today's times. 10 years ago when the project started, it made complete sense to have it done that way, but for now, looking at how many internship possibilities it is providing and looking at how much human resource and resources in general are invested into it, it does not make sense to keep it with the current structure. So this is why the executive is proposing to drop IMP.
Thank you. Now I have Mihai with a new point.
Mihai, President, looking at how we had general agreement on dropping Article 514 from the terms of reference changes, the executive would like to propose an amendment to the motion and add 514 to the list, to not have it approved today and to have it dropped from the proposals in general. So we will not be rediscussing this, it will be dropped from the executive.
With a clarification?
Marlene Apap, Austria. Since the rest of it will be postponed, can we maybe clarify the wording by just adding and dropping Article 5.1.4, because otherwise it might get really confusing?
Mihai, President, I see your concern, but I think by now everyone knows what 5.1.4 means, and I can assure you it will not be on the motion on the screen next weekend. Having a rewording now does not really make sense because we are already excluding some articles and we shouldn't necessarily give special attention to this one because we're not voting on either of them. So it's the same thing, but we'll not be re-voting on 514.
APEF dropped. I have PPSA now, if it's still a new point related to this.
Joanna, PPSA Poland. My new point was in regards to the job shop, because I saw that it's also going to be dropped, and in my understanding it's quite different than IMP, and I would like to ask, why do you want to drop these? Thank you.
Hi.
Hi, President. So with the job shop, it is sort of the similar thing. We don't have enough applications and we don't have enough opportunities to make it work, having a separate project and to have something on the website separately, and to have such a long chain into having the Vice President of External Relations going to the VPPR to go to IT coordinator to post something on the website, when it can be simply done via email. Anyway, the promotion is done at national/local level by you, by the members. So it really doesn't make sense to have it for 2/3 opportunities per mandate. This is what we have right now, and this is what is happening with it. If in the future, of your external relations will find more opportunities, then future executives could reconsider adding something similar, maybe in a different manner to suit the need. But at the moment, the way the job shop is done, it doesn't make sense to do that.
Thank you. Now I have a book. Now I have CzPSA.
CzPSA Slovenia. We also have a question about the Article 21.7.13. Friends of the association must pay a minimum fee of 50 euros per year. And this is the proposed change. And what is the reason for a higher membership fee?
Hi, President. Given the benefits currently the Friends of the Association have, we thought it makes sense to bring it closer to individual members in membership fee, so that everything is aligned and everything has its own purpose. At the moment, with a lower membership fee for Friends of the Association, some could just go around a bigger fee just by going and paying for it instead of individual membership if they want to attend events.
Nate, CzPSA Slovenia. Yes, I understand it, but do you think that this is the right time to do it? Because since we can see from the EPSA finances, EPSA has quite a big of the surplus, and in CzPSA we don't think that this is necessary. This change is necessary right now.
Mihai?
Mihai, President, when we discussed, we came to the conclusion that it makes sense to have it now before the events will be restarted, to have somehow preventing that happening. We have very few people applying for Friends of the Association anyway, so the impact will not be high at all. We only had one this mandate, and I think maximum 2 in the previous mandates.
I do not have any more points on my speaking list. Do you have any more comments or questions?
Mihai, President, I close the floor for discussion.
Okay, I'll now go to this motion, and I will read it again. The 61st EPSA General Assembly adopts the changes of the EPSA terms of reference except for the articles named, proposed by the executive. Please type for, against, or abstain in the chat. We have 24 votes for, no against, no abstention. Motion was carried. Technical from BPSA that will unfortunately not join us anymore, so the voters list has to change. Mihai, with the technical.
Mihai, President, thank you very much for letting us know that you will be leaving the GA. Unfortunately, if you return after a session has started, BPSA, like if we don't have any official delegates from BPSA during the start of the session and during the first roll call of the session, BPSA will not have voting rights for that whole session.
Thank you. Now we have terms of reference member changes proposals. We have the first one. The 61st EPSA General Assembly adopts the changes of the EPSA terms of reference proposed by CzPSA, the Netherlands, and seconded by Advocacy on Article 3.8.11. I open the floor for discussion.
At EPSA Netherlands, we propose this change because the regulations or TORSO now states that you have to inform the executive of each change in statutes or internal regulations. We as the CzPSA have like a long document of internal regulations, and I can imagine that many other associations do so as well. And many of these changes will not necessarily be of any impact to EPSA, and therefore it will be better to just only inform the executive once it's relevant to EPSA. Thank you.
Now I have a hope.
Lena of Austria, we completely agree with CzPSA's motivation, and also think this might reduce the work load on each side, because it's just not necessary to inform of every change inside every association. Thank you.
Have any points on the speaking list? Mihai, the technical.
Mihai, President, I close the floor for discussion.
Thank you. I will read the motion again, and just for safety, first of all, let's perform a roll call, because we know we will not have the number of voters. Maiva?
Austria, VFSA Belgium, BPHSA Bulgaria, CPSA Croatia, USF Czech Republic, TORSO Estonia, FIPSA Finland, ANEP France, BPHD Germany, GPSF Greece, EPSA Ireland, K.N.P.S.V. the Netherlands, NOPSA Norway, PPSA Poland, APEF Portugal, FASEFERE Romania, NAPSA Serbia, SPSA Slovakia, CzPSA Slovenia, FEF Spain, SNAP Sweden, ASEP Switzerland, EPSA International Turkey, and BPSA United Kingdom. Now have 23 voting members.
Thank you. Now I will read the motion. The 61st EPSA General Assembly adopts the changes of the EPSA terms of reference proposed by CzPSA, the Netherlands, and seconded by Advocacy on Article 3.8.11. Please type for, against, or abstain in the chat. Still missing one. Two votes. (22). If this happens next time as well, we perform a roll call again. Motion was carried with 22 votes for, none against, no abstention. Until going to the next motion, I will pass facilitation to Era.
Thank you, Bianca. Can everyone hear me? Okay, good. So first I will read the motion. The 61st EPSA General Assembly adopts the changes of the EPSA terms of reference proposed by KMPSV the Netherlands and seconded by AFOP Austria on Article 3.8.3. So I will open the floor for discussion on the motion. KMPSV.
Netherlands. Well, this adoption actually speaks quite for itself. 3.8.5 does not state anything that isn't stated in 3.8.5, 3.8.3, and therefore can just be removed because it has no additional value to TORSO, and TORSO is already quite long. Thank you.
Nothing to add from AFOP. Do we have any other comments? I see none. Mihai with the technical.
Mihai, President, I close the floor for discussion.
Hi, and now we can move on to vote for the motion. So type for, against, or abstain in the chat. Give us a moment so we can count again. We had 22 voting members that typed Y during the roll call, and now we have 23. Marlene with a clarification.
Marlene of Austria, maybe I misheard, but didn't Maeva say she had 23 voting members present?
Apologies. So we had 23 voting members present, and now we have 23 votes for, 0 against, and 0 abstention, and the motion was carried. Now we'll move on to the next motion. So the 61st EPSA General Assembly adopts the changes of the EPSA Terms of Reference proposed by KMPSV the Netherlands and seconded by APEF Portugal on Article 3.9.6. I have the right to speak to KMPSV. Yes, KMPSV.
KMPSV Netherlands. Article 3.9.6.4 now states the exact number of students per year per studies in all faculties and departments of pharmacy and the number of per year have to be sent to the EPSA executive before the 1st of February. While EPSA does actually not benefit from receiving this information, and it can be a lot of work for the LSs to try to sort this out. Additionally, not all information is even available, since in the Netherlands at least, graduating or the number and names of graduate students is protected by the GBDH. I'm not sure. I always forget the abbreviation. So therefore, erasing this would be best. Thank you.
KMPSV and APEF.
Lucian APEF Portugal. APEF agrees and supports this motion. Also, it is difficult to LSs to provide this kind of input, in which not allows to have a clear and full conformity of the data obtained. Thank you.
Do we have any other comments? I see none. Mihai with the technical.
President, I close the floor for discussion.
Mihai, and I will proceed to vote on the motion. So just read the motion one more time. The 61st EPSA General Assembly adopts the changes of the EPSA Terms of Reference proposed by KMPSV the Netherlands and seconded by APEF Portugal on Article 3.9.6. And now you can write for, against, or abstain in the chat. Twenty-three votes for, 0 against, and 0 abstentions. The motion was carried. We will proceed to executive changes of the standing orders. Next slide, please. I'll read the motion. The 61st EPSA General Assembly adopts the changes of the EPSA standing orders proposed by the executive.
have any comments from the executive? So I open the floor for discussion on the motion. CzPSA.
Nate, just over the Slovenia, in the standing order change, there's also a change regarding the advocacy platform coordinator, like the change of the name. But since we didn't accept the change in the terms of reference, can we vote on that or not? Or should we exclude that change?
President with the direct.
Mihai, President. So if this change gets approved now, we will be able to vote later and in the next weekend directly for the new position. What we laid on the table relates to moving the votes from online LS meetings to advocacy platform meetings. So we laid on the table something a bit different. We are proposing one change to add a position for the platform, but also there was something else to change a bit how the platform works. So these are completely separate things. We can leave it as it is, we can get it approved now, and it doesn't interfere with anything. If we remove this from the standing orders change, then we also need to take it out from the coordinator's handbook, and I think from somewhere else, but I can't remember at the moment, but it will be at least that. So if we approve this, we also approve the coordinator's handbook, then we can appoint the new coordinator even this weekend.
Hi, CzPSA with the direct.
Nate, Slovenia. So I'm not sure if I understood that correctly. So we will be electing a coordinator, or like electing a position that is not in the terms of reference, or am I mistaken?
Done with the direct.
Mihai, President, we are electing. The position is in the terms of reference. Everything on the restructure is on page 2. It was added with Article 8.1.2.17, and it got approved.
Comments? With technical.
Mihai, President, I close the floor for discussion.
Mihai, and now we can proceed to vote on the motion. I will read it one more time. The 61st EPSA General Assembly adopts the changes of the EPSA standing orders proposed by the executive. Now you can write for, against, or abstain in the chat. $23 votes for, 0 against, and 0 abstentions. The motion was carried. We'll move on to handbook changes. Okay, then we'll start with the executive handbook. I open the floor for discussion. Any comments? See none. We'll move on to the next handbook, which is the EPSA Coordinators Handbook. Have any comments? AFOP?
Marlene AFOP, just to make sure that the amendments and proposals that we mentioned in OD meeting will be included in this version.
So direct.
Hi, President. Yes, they will be included, and I would like to mention one amendment here. On chapter 3, we talk about appointing the EPSA Summer University chairperson as team member, and we forgot to add the Summer University in a paragraph. You can see a comment in the document. It says the EPSA Annual Congress and the EPSA Summer University and the EPSA Autumn Assembly are EPSA's official events. The elected host organization of the EPSA Annual Congress and the EPSA Autumn Assembly forms the reception committee. Here we also need to add EPSA Summer University. This is a change discussed in the OD's meeting, and it will be amended to also add Summer University here. One more amendment to discuss on the advocacy platform coordinator. Instead of redacts and release minutes of the APR meetings in a timely manner, we'll write and release minutes of the APR meetings in a timely manner. Short wording change. And these would be all the amendments from the executive on coordinator center.
Hi, do we have any other comments on the EPSA Coordinators Handbook? See none, we'll move on to the next handbook, which is the LS Handbook. Have any comments on the LS Handbook? MUPSA.
Turkey. I have seen that the ambassador part is also getting out from the LS handbook. What's the situation on the student's guide and the ambassador? Thank you.
Sit down with the direct.
Yeah, President, as it was outlined in the document explaining the outcomes of the working statement number 2, the Students' Guide project is getting dropped along the Humanitarian Mobility project. The Students' Guide will be replaced with a cooperation with ESN. We will basically be relying on their content, on their databases, and on their structures, instead of trying to replicate it within EPSA and with EPSA workforce. So it is not mentioned only in the LS handbook, it is mentioned in many more handbooks.
Mihai, any other comments on the LS handbook? I see none. Next handbook changes to approve is the events handbook. Have any comments on the events handbook? None. Next is the IMP Handbook.
Mihai President, just to make it clear for everyone, the handbook is getting removed along with the project, and this goes hand in hand with other changes proposed in the terms of reference and everywhere in the regulations, basically.
Hi, do we have any comments? See none. Next, we have the EPSA House Handbook. Any comments on the handbook changes for the EPSA House Handbook? See none. And next we have the Reports Handbook. Comments? None. Advocacy Platform Handbook. CzPSA.
Sanja, CzPSA Slovenia. In terms of reference, there can be seen that policy papers and statements of opinion could be approved by the either GA, online LS meeting, or advocacy platform meeting. However, in the advocacy platform handbook changes, it is stated that only GA or advocacy platform meeting can do that. Or what is the case here? Who can approve it?
With direct.
And is not a direct, but it will answer the question. I would like to ask the General Assembly to propose a 9.6 to lay this point on the table after the regulation changes in the next weekend. I forgot to mention that when proposing changes to the agenda, the handbook needs more amendments hand in hand with the delayed changes in the terms of reference. So if we could please propose and second the 9.6 and lay it on the table for the next weekend, we could then discuss everything properly. Thank you.
Hi, first we have AFOP with clarification.
Yeah, AFOP Austria, since this all will be one big motion with all the handbooks, don't we need a 9.15 first to have it, the advocacy platform extra, and then have it done like this?
With technical.
President, we need this 9.6 here to have the point on the agenda to discuss separately, and then also 9.15 on the motion as well. The motion can be written directly without it if we have this point on the agenda for later. But without the point on the agenda to discuss, then we can't really discuss any changes without, if we don't do it now, basically.
And next we have a 9.6 from KMPSV and seconded by CzPSA. The floor first of KMPSV.
At the KMPSV Netherlands, I think Marlene still has a clarification.
With the technical.
Thank you, because a procedural motion was said, let's say, every point until or after the procedural motion is dropped, and we take into consideration the procedural motion, but without interrupting the person that was already speaking. We have to proceed to the 9.6 now. Thank you, Eva.
Apologies, it was my mistake before. So again, I give the floor to KMPSV.
KPC Netherlands. Okay, then we propose the 9.6 to lay this on the table until after the TORSO changes have been adopted, because then we can better, or then we have the right knowledge to vote on this matter.
CzPSV, and now I give the floor to CzPSA.
Sanja, CzPSA Slovenia, we agree with CzPSV. We have nothing to add.
Sanja, and first I open the floor for discussion on the motion. Mihai? AFOP first.
Malina, AFOP Austria, I was just wondering, since this is not a motion per se, why we need a 9.6 now?
New point from Mihai was dropped. Mihai with a direct.
Hi, President. So we have no point on the agenda for the next weekend to discuss changes on the Advocacy Platform Handbook. Without that, we cannot have a motion to approve the changes on the Advocacy Platform Handbook. Since motions are proposed by the executive and don't need a seconder, we can word a motion for this weekend to exclude the Advocacy Platform directly without the need for 9.15. And then we can propose another motion next weekend after we discuss the amended version of the Advocacy Platform Handbook to approve the changes. Hope this was clear now.
Have any other comments on the motion? With the technical.
Mihai, President, I close the floor for discussion on the 9.6.
Mihai, and now we'll proceed on voting on the motion. So just draw a line, and you can vote for, against, or abstain in the chat on the motion. I have 23 votes for, so this point will be moved after the torso changes are adopted. Mihai with the technical.
Mihai, President, thank you for approving the 9.6 and apologies for all the confusion. I should have been clear from the beginning to also change this in the agenda.
Hi, and now we'll move on to the next handbook, which is the LLeaP Handbook. Points or comments? See none. Next handbook is the EPSA Alumni Project Handbook. Any comments? See none. Next we have the EPSA Library Handbook. Any comments? See none. Next is the EPSA Mentoring Project Handbook. Comments? See none. Next is the EPSA Training Project Handbook. Any comments here?
Marlene Apfelbotte, just that it wasn't mentioned on the agenda. If there's any problems.
Mihai with a direct.
Mihai, President, I will have to double check. I remember adding everything. If not, anyway, if there will be comments, we could discuss them on the motion, but thank you very much for spotting.
We have the EPSA Science Day Handbook. Comments? See none. Public Relations Handbook.
Mihai, President, I would like to propose an amendment to the Public Relations Handbook. On page 8, changes document on chapter 4.2, let's say we have a sentence being removed that says it shall be stored in the EPSA house about the EPSA merchandise and sold during the EPSA events and over the EPSA webshop. We would like to only delete and over the EPSA webshop and not the whole sentence in order to maintain it regulated to keep the merch in the EPSA house and sold during events.
Comments? See none. We'll move to the motion for the handbook changes. Small technical as we amend. Aye. There was an old point and a technical from my part. I was waiting for the slide to be zoomed so that I could read it. Now I will read the motion. The 61st EPSA General Assembly approves the changes of the EPSA Executive Handbook, EPSA Coordinators Handbook, LS Handbook, Events Handbook, IMP Handbook, EPSA House Handbook, Reports Handbook, LLeaP Handbook, EPSA Alumni Project Handbook, EPSA Training Project Handbook, EPSA Mentoring Project Handbook, EPSA Science Day Handbook, EPSA Advocacy Platform Handbook, EPSA Public Relations Handbook, as proposed by the executive. Now I open the floor for discussion on the motion.
Mihai, President, we would like to propose 2 amendments to the motion. First of all, we would like the motion to say the 61st EPSA General Assembly approves the amended changes to remove the EPSA Advocacy Platform Handbook for the motion. Thank you.
So I will read the motion one more time. The 61st EPSA General Assembly approves the amended changes of the Executive Handbook, EPSA Coordinators Handbook, LS Handbook, Events Handbook, IMP Handbook, EPSA House Handbook, Reports Handbook, LLeaP Handbook, EPSA Alumni Project Handbook, EPSA Training Project Handbook, EPSA Mentoring Project Handbook, EPSA Science Day Handbook, Public Relations Handbook as proposed by the executive. And I open the floor for discussion on the amended motion. First, we'll take AFOP. Apologies.
Alina, AFOP Austria. Just wondering why the EPSA Alumni Project Handbook is there, since we don't have any actual changes to the EPSA Alumni Project Handbook in our GA package.
That was a technical, so now it's amended. New point was dropped from KMPSV. And there is another new point from AFOP.
Alina, AFOP Austria. Also, sometimes it's called EPSA Coordinators Handbook, sometimes it's just called Executive Handbook. So I was wondering if you could maybe make it all in one way, or are they called different? Because the Public Relations Handbook, for example, is called EPSA Public Relations Handbook in our GA package.
Mihai with a direct.
President, only the LS Handbook and the Mentoring Project Handbook do not have EPSA in front of the name. All the rest of them do have it.
Mihai, and I believe now I can read the amended motion once again. No, no need. So, do we still discuss the motion? Yes. Okay, do we have any other points or comments on the motion? With technical.
Mihai, President, I close the floor for discussion.
Mihai, and now we can proceed to vote on the motion. I believe there is no need to read the motion once again. Please wait for me to say when you can vote on the motion. I will draw a new line. Thank you. And now you can vote on the motion, for, against, or abstain in the chat. Votes for, 0 against, and 0 abstention. The motion was carried. Technical.
President, so next we'll have some discussions that will require a secret vote. So in order to make sure that everything goes smoothly, I would ask you to take a 15-minute break now to give PC time to properly prepare everything, to redo the voters list to give everyone all the links they need, so that we start with this one, see if we have problems, and then everything could go smoothly in elections afterwards. So we'll have a roll call now, and we'll be back at 12:30.
I can proceed with the roll call.
Era. So I have F Austria, VFSA Belgium, BPHSA Bulgaria, CPSA Croatia, USF Czech Republic, TORSO Estonia, FIPSA Finland, ANEP France, BPHD Germany, GPSF Greece, IPSA Ireland, K.N.P.S.V. the Netherlands, NOPSA Norway, PPSA Poland, APEF Portugal, FASFR Romania, NAPSA Serbia, SPSA Slovakia, CzPSA Slovenia, FEF Spain, SNAP Sweden, ASEP Switzerland, and EPSA International Turkey.
From CzPSA.
CzPSA Slovenia. We would just like to say that there was a lot of confusion during this session, and we would just like to ask the exec or the PC to explain more on what was voting, on what is voting, because we are pretty sure that the majority of the ODs were not sure on what are they voting during this session. So yeah, we would just like to ask the exec or the PC to explain more what is happening, what is going on, what are we voting on. Thank you.
For that, and we'll do for the next session.
Two members present.
And I suspend the standing orders. See you all back at 12:30.